What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Let's get started. We're going to finish up my MLB preview once I go through the last division today, which is the National League West. Either next time I do my podcast, which might be tomorrow, it might not be till Monday or Tuesday. Will be probably like playoff predictions and a war pick. This is my last division by division preview that I have to do. So let's get started with the National League West. Starting with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the two-time defending World Series champions. They are projected at 104 wins. That's a crazy projection, but I'm going to take the over. This team is just ridiculous. There's not a whole lot to say. A team that came off their second straight World Series championship. With already a crazy good roster, went out and signed the best reliever in the National League, Evan Diaz, to close for them on a 3-year deal worth $69 million. He gets a huge deal. They had Kyle Tucker, one of the best outfield bats in the league. He was hurt down the stretch last year, which did hurt his performance, but first half he was electric when he's healthy. He is an electric bat in top of your lineup. They got him for 4 years and $240 million, which is ridiculous with an opt-out after the second season. This team is just crazy good. The rotation is not even fair. You have Yamamoto, who was incredible last year, World Series MVP. Blake Snell was great. Terry Glass was very good. Ohtani, who when he pitches is great. And Roki Sasaki, who last year was injured for a lot of the regular season, ended up closing for the Dodgers in the postseason, is your 5. It's just absolutely ridiculous. In the bullpen, you have Diaz, who's obviously electric. Tamara Scott, you paid a lot of money last year, wasn't very good after a career the year before. You're going to have him healthier. Alex Faccia is a good lefty. Like, Tryon is a good reliever. Bruce Garrett's going to be coming back. You have a bunch of young guys like Edgardo Hernandez, Jack Dreyer, Evan Phillips, who 2 years ago was very, very good. Bit of a down year last year, but he's still like a good reliever. They're very deep. Can Bobby Miller get them something? We all remember Will Klein's performance in that 18-inning game against Toronto. And this offensively, I don't have to say it. Obviously, Ohtani is just on another planet. With Will Smith behind the plate, Freddie Freeman's still a huge impact at first base. From, obviously, I mentioned Kyle Tucker. Taylor Hernandez is a great hitter. Mookie Betts has lost a slight step, but, he's developed into a very good shortstop, but still a decent hitter. And there's so much depth between Ha-Sung Kim, Miguel Rojas, Tommy Edmonds, a great second baseman. Even in the outfield, you have Andy Pye, who's a good center fielder defensively, and Jack Sawinski. Yeah, even Alex Cole's not a bad depth piece. This team just loaded for days, and they're easily going to clear 100 wins. And I wouldn't be surprised if they win the World Series again, not going to lie. I know it's boring, but probably it's going to happen. In second place, I have a San Diego Padres. I have them going over the 80 wins that they are projected. This is a weird team. They're very top-heavy. You look at their rotation. Nick Pivetta had a career last year. Getting Joe Musgrove back will be very helpful. Hopefully Michael King is healthy. When healthy, he's fantastic. After that, you're counting on a lot of maybes. Randy Vasquez, who is a young pitcher. He got in the trade a year or two ago. They are counting on him. Griffin Canning, who was pitching pretty well for the Mets last year before he pops his Achilles. You're counting on him to give some decent innings. You're bringing Herman Marquez, kind of a reclamation project, coming over from Colorado. Tristan McKenzie is another one of those. That being said, your bullpen is fantastic. Mason Miller is nasty. You have you do lose Robert Suarez, but he's he'll be back in the closer role. Adrian Morejon had a great year last year. Jeremiah Estrada, Yuki Matsui, Winnie Peralta. This is a great bullpen. Offensively, again, you're very top heavy. We know what Fernando Tatis is. He's an incredible player. Manny Machado is a great player. Jake Cronenworth is very good. I like what they have behind the plate. Freddie Freeman's a great defender behind the plate. Luis Campusano's decent as well. You have a power bat in Gavin Sheets, but Xander Bogaerts is not near the same player. You do bring in Ramon Laureano. Hopefully Jackson Merrill is healthy. He's a very good young outfielder. You add Nicholas Castellanos. He'll probably DH mostly for the Padres. You also bring in Miguel Andujar, who had a good year last year. Kind of a bounce back year for him after a couple of rough years bouncing around the league. So this is a team that's got a bunch of wild cards. They always, every year, seem to have a stacked roster and come up a little bit short, but this is a good team that should definitely make the playoffs. In third place in the National League West, I'm going to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I have them going over the 78 wins, but this is the best division in baseball. Look, they have a lot of offense. Pitching wise, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. You re-signed Zach Gallen for a year. He struggled last year, but for years in the past, he's been very, very good. Getting a little older, has some injury issues, but was healthy last year, although he didn't pitch very well. That was better down the stretch. You bring back Merrill Kelly. You trade away, didn't allow last year. You bring him back. Hopefully, Brendan Fat is healthy, standing with Eduardo Rodriguez. You're going to need those guys. You should get Corbin Burns back at some point, who you gave $200 million two years ago. Obviously, you didn't pitch last year because of Tommy John. The bullpen is a little bit worrisome. I know Kevin Ginkel's probably your closer. There isn't a whole lot I like. You're hoping, you have a couple of reclamation projects for sure, like Jonathan Loizaga, Paul Sewald you bring back for a second time, AJ Pook. So hopefully that works out. They should hit a lot. Corbin Carroll is electric, just got a big extension. You have Gabriel Moreno behind the plate. You bring Carlos Santana, who's still got some power. Ketel Marte is maybe the best second baseman in the league. Feel like he might get traded in the offseason after he had some issues in the clubhouse last year. Didn't get moved. Troto Padromos is very underrated, one of the best shortstops in the game. I still believe in Alec Thomas. You have some young guys like Jordan Lawler. Lourdes Gurriel is an okay play. You bring in Nolan Arenado, who's at the very end of his career, but can kind of handle himself at the plate and still a decent third baseman. This is a good team. I think their team's going to be a little bit capped. They're just so overmatched in that division. I don't think their pitching is great, especially in the bullpen. But I think they'll be at least a little bit above 500. I'm not sure if they'll make the playoffs. It's a shame. They've actually had pretty good rosters since the World Series trip a few years ago. But the last 2 years have come up just short of the postseason. In fourth place, I have the San Francisco Giants. I'm going under the 81 wins that Pacoda has them projected at. This is one of those rosters. If you're a casual, you look, it's like they have a really good roster. This should be a legit playoff team. But when you do a deep dive, you realize it's a lot of just confusion. Like, I love Logan Webb, a true ace. Other than that, you look at that rotation, it's kind of mind-boggling. Robbie Ray's older, not the same pitcher. Adrian Hauser is very inconsistent. Tyler Mayo's okay. In the bullpen, Blake Tidwell, who you got from the Mets for Tyler Rogers, should pitch a bunch this year. The bullpen, Ryan Walker is a very good reliever. Jose Butto will probably have a major impact for them this year. Got him for the Mets as well last year. Jason Foley's an interesting piece that you're hoping can stay healthy. Other than that, their pitching isn't great really outside of Logan Webb. Offensively, I like Patrick Bailey behind the plate. He's a great defender. Obviously, a first full year of Rafael Devers. Not sure how much defense will play, but he can hit a lot. You bring in Luis Arias, who's a good bat-to-ball hitter. Matt Chapman, we know, is great at third base. Willie Adames has got power at shortstop. In the outfield, you bring in Harrison Bader, who's a good center fielder. Jung-Hoo Lee is a good player. Drew Gilbert, who you got from the Mets last year as well, and that steal trade for Tyler Rogers, should play a bunch. Luis Matos is a talented young player, as is Earhart Encarnacion. But this is a team, to me, should hit a lot, but it's not very good defensively. Is very thin in the rotation, and just overall their pitching isn't great. I think that's going to hurt them, especially in that division. And I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Dodgers and even the San Diego Padres. So I have them finishing in fourth place. In last place is the Colorado Rockies. They're projected at 60 wins. I don't take the under. This seems a joke. You look at the rotation. Kyle Freeland is stuck in this Colorado Rockies Coors Field vortex. Jose Quintana's still solid. Lorenzen's still pretty good. You brought in Tomiko Sugano, who wasn't great in Baltimore last year. Your bullpen is yikes. Your closer was Victor Vodnik, who isn't bad, but other than that, your bullpen is a complete joke. Offensively, Hunter Goodman's a pretty good offensive catcher. Bringing Willie Cashman's a nice utility piece to have. Tovar's a solid shortstop. Other than that, it's a bunch of yikes. You're relying on guys like Zach V, Mickey Moniak from our complete first-round bust from our first overall pick by Philadelphia. Didn't work out. And you got a bunch of guys I never even heard of, like Troy Johnston and Jordan Beck. Brenton Doyle's pretty good. But overall, this is a horrific baseball team, and they're going to lose over 100 games. Possibly 110. I don't know if they'll lose, 120 like they did last year, but they're probably looking at I think it will be their fourth straight 100-plus loss year for sure. Let's talk NFL free agency as the signs continue to come out. Players continue to sign, of course. Deals can now be officially official. Jets sign offensive guard Dylan Parham, 2 years, $20 million. I think this is a decent signing. Parham had a decent year last year with the Raiders. He's been a reliable guard the last 4 years for them. Comes over to the Jets. Needed one more guard after losing Elijah Vera Tucker and John Simpson for agency. Simpson went back to the Ravens. EVT complete trader signs with the Patriots. Signing Parham, this now gives you a five offensive linemen that you feel confident in that are all starting counter offensive linemen. Most of them were on the team last year and year before that, so you have a lot of returning stars on the offensive line, which is going to be very helpful. Have one of the probably better ones in the league, which is crazy to say as a Jet fan. The Jets haven't had a good offensive line in a long time. Now you can go into the NFL draft next month, not having to worry about spending an early pick on an offensive lineman necessarily. So Dylan Parham signed for 2 years with the Jets. Eagles revised Landon Dickerson's deal, another offensive guard. It's now 2 years, $36 million. Colts signed Michael Clemens. Thank God he's off the Jets. That guy is a walking personal foul. At best, a serviceable backup defensive lineman. Enjoy him, Colts, I guess. It's only $6 million a season, but thank God he's off the Jets. Patriots signed Kevin Byard a year for $9 million. That's a solid signing. He had a good year last year. Chicago was a solid safety, even at his age. 7 interceptions last year, which led the league. So still a good ball walking safety. After it looked like he was going to get cut, the Vikings come to terms with Aaron Jones on a revised deal. He takes a pay cut. He'll make just $5.5 million this coming season to stay with the Vikings. You probably figured I'm 32 years old, coming off an injury plagued year, probably not going to get $5.5 million on the open market. So he decided it's best to take the pay cut and stay with the Minnesota Vikings as our starting running back. So he stays on. The Commanders signed Chigon Conquo, 3 years, $30 million. I think this is a decent signing for the Commanders. He had a good year last year, 56 catches, 509 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's an average starting tight end. You have him and Zach Ertz there in Washington as security blankets for Jane Daniels. The Panthers signed John Mechie for a year. Mechie's had a kind of a wild career. The second-round pick of Alabama a few years ago by the Texans. His rookie year, he actually had leukemia, so he didn't play. Came back his second year a couple of years ago and was actually relatively decent. Gets traded to the Eagles the following season. Was on the team last year. Didn't really play much. And gets traded to the Jets at the deadline for Michael Carter II, the corner. And he played relatively solid for the New York Jets, considering the awful quarterback situation they had last year in the second half of the year. But he signed with the Panthers on a one-year deal. I think it's a solid year for the Panthers, taking a chance on him. He's a talented receiver. Just hasn't, hadn't gotten a lot of playing time yet. The 49ers make a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. They pick up Osa, I'm going to try to pronounce this right, Odighizuwa, the D tackle, for a third-round pick. I think this is a good trade for the 49ers. You look at San Fran. They really needed a really good D tackle. You haven't had one in a couple of years. Ever since you let go of Eric Armstead a couple of years ago. Last year, 44 tackles, 3.5 sacks last year. He's an excellent run stuffer, decent against pushing the pocket as well. You put him next to a returning Nick Bosa, when healthy, is a beast. First round pick Mike Williams, who was injured most of last year, you'll have him healthy as well. Freddie Warner at linebacker, all of a sudden, the Niners even thought was horrendous last year, partly because of all the injuries. All of a sudden looks like a real unit this year. So he goes to Dallas, from Dallas to San Francisco. I'm not sure why Dallas traded him. I get you. Obviously, you maybe made the big trade for Quinnen Williams last year. You had him there. You got Kenny Clark in the Micah Parsons trade, so I guess he wasn't necessarily needed, but he's a very good player. One of the best run stuffers in the league. He signed a big contract last year. I'm not sure why you moved him. I would have kept him, especially when considering your biggest weakness was off the defensive line last year, and you trade your second best defensive lineman for a day 2 pick. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense, even though the position is strong in numbers in Dallas. But he goes to the 49ers. Packers signed Javon Hargrave from a Vikings D tackle who was cut for cap purposes. 2 years, $23 million. It's a good signing for the Packers. He's still a solid D tackle. And the other Viking D tackle who was cut, Jonathan Allen, actually just signed with the he signed with the Cincinnati Bengals, 2 years and $28 million. Good signing for the Bengals. Gives them a really solid defensive tackle. They need all the help they can get on defense, especially with losing Trey Hendrickson for agency. Then Jaguars signed Chris Rodriguez II. He had no key year last year for the Commanders at running back. Ran for 500 yards on 4.5 yards a carry. Didn't get a whole lot of work, but Demo Stretch was kind of the feature back for them. He goes to the Jaguars. It's going to be interesting to see how that running back room sorts out with Travis Etienne now in New Orleans. I know Tootin is there. You drafted him last year. He got a lot of goal line work last year. We'll see if him or Rodriguez Roby takes the reins there. Could they add another running back? Maybe they add somebody in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe day two they draft somebody. Maybe Jadarian Price is who's considered the second best running back in this draft, of course, behind Jeremiah Love, most likely a second round draft pick. Is talking about them in the NFL draft. And the Bills signed Bradley Chubb, 3 years, $43.5 million, and $29 million guaranteed. Okay, so I think it's a little steep. I'm not sure if I would have given a 3 year deal for a guy who's going to be 30 and has a long injury history. But he is a good player. Last year, played every game, was healthy, had 8.5 sacks, 47 tackles. He had a good year last year. Still a very solid pass rusher. Bills have had a pass rush issue for quite a few years, and I think adding him does make a lot of sense. Again, it would not have gone to 3 years. However, just under $50 million a year, I think it's a fair salary. I guess what 2 forced fumbles last year. He's still a good player. He stays in the AFC East, getting cup up by the Dolphins, and he ends up with the Buffalo Bills. So I'm gonna do my post free agency mock draft. My original plan was to, after I did my first one right before free agency, not do another one till about a week or two before the NFL draft. I'm still planning to do another mock draft before the NFL draft. But after free agency, because it was so wild, I thought it was necessary to do another mock draft. Because if I did do one, my last one was just the one right before the draft, it'd be so drastically different. It'd be a little weird. So I thought it was necessary to do another mock draft in between. So first overall, but I'm not going to put the sound in for this one today. But the I did last time. But I might do it next time now. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback at Indiana, of course, is being the first overall pick by the Raiders. That's been obvious for months now. New York Jets, second overall pick. I am taking Alvaro Reese, linebacker out of Ohio State. So I really think the pick should be David Bailey. I think Reese and Bailey are both have outstanding ceilings. Reese is probably a touch higher, but Bailey's floor is a little bit safer. So I think the pick should be David Bailey. But after the Jets were very aggressive in free agency and on the defensive side of the ball, especially up front, I have a feeling in their 4-3 defense they're going to want Alvaro Reese. And I think they're going to shoot for the stars with him. Who I don't think it's a bad pick. I think he'll be a great player, but there's still the buff potential is just a little higher with him. So I'm a little bit nervous with him over Bailey, but Alvaro Reese, I think will be second overall of the Jets. Third overall, I still going to see Yo tackle out of Miami, Francis Moaiga to the Arizona Cardinals. You look at it, I mean, their quarterback next year is probably going to be Jacoby Brissett. Who, one, he can't move, and two, you're going to be drafting a kid next year. You have already a good young left tackle in Paris Johnson. Now you draft this kid. You brought in Isaac Seumalo to play guard. All of a sudden, your line's kind of coming together. I've said this before. When you're in a pretty much almost a complete rebuild like the Arizona Cardinals are, it's a lot easier to build inside out. It's, to build the trenches and then worry about everything else. So I think a team like that should really target the offensive line in the NFL draft. At least that should be the first thing that they look to build when you're building an NFL roster, and Arizona should be doing that. Fourth overall, Tennessee Titans, they get David Bailey, edge rusher at Texas Tech. I still think they're going edge rusher. I know they signed John Franklin Myers, but with Robert Saleh as the head coach, he loves having deep front sevens. He had it in San Francisco in at least his first stint. He had that with the Jets as a head coach. Of course, he was a head coach in Tennessee. Bailey and Franklin Myers on each side with Jeffrey Simmons in the middle. Plus, you have Jermaine Johnson. That's an incredibly talented defensive line. So I still think the pick is David Bailey. Fifth overall, the New York Giants. I still think linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. He's probably the best player available at this point. And even with the Tremaine Edmonds signing, I think you can still play those two guys together. I think you can absolutely play those two guys together. You remember John Harbaugh is taking over. He's going to want impact pieces on the defensive side of the ball. He's probably looking at this thinking, okay, I got a very talented defensive line with Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and company. And Abdul Carter has the old talent in the world. Now I add Edmonton, Sonny Styles. Uh, that gives you a really good front seven. That's a really good start. Remember, their secondary is kind of weak. You lost Cordell Flott. You didn't add a impact corner or defensive back at all in for agency. They're gonna have to target that on day two. I thought about Mansour Delane. I think just a little bit rich for him. I do like him. He's coming soon in this mock, and I just think you can't turn down the potential of Sonny Styles. Sixth overall, Cleveland Browns, wide receiver Colonel out of Ohio State. I still think he's the pick here for them. They've done as good job as they possibly could have, trying to revamp that offensive line. I thought about just continuing to just mow that down. Maybe you look at like Alex Spencer Fano and get one more off the line to complete your offensive line. But you did bring in 3 or 4 offensive linemen in for agency. You made some moves, small moves on defense. That's not really a concern for them. They desperately need a number one wide receiver. You know, number one I was Jerry Jeudy, who has hands of rocks. Get Carmel Tate a legit electric receiver on the outside. I mean, they don't have a quarterback, obviously, but they're going to be drafting one next year. Carmel Tate to the Cleveland Browns. 7th overall, Washington Commanders. Running back Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love, to me, is one of the most interesting prospects in this draft. When I did this the last time, I thought there's no way he's getting past the 8th and the 9th pick. The Saints have 8, the Chiefs have 9. The Saints went out and dropped $52 million on Travis Etienne while still having Alvin Kamara. The Chiefs spent all that money on Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP from last year. Like, they're probably not taking a running back. So I look at this draft, I'm like, where is he going to go? This is a guy who could easily be in this, 5, 6, 7, 8 pick range. But I could also see him if he gets past the Chiefs, the way the board falls, he could really fall in this draft. But I think the Commanders pick him up here. I think the Commanders are going to target Sonny Styles, but if he gets to them, I think they jump all over that. You put him next to the Bobby Wagner, that would be really, really nice. But in this mock, he doesn't get to them. I don't think I really think he will be a member of the New York Giants. And I just think he's one of the at least three best players available here. I get it, a team like that, you should take best player available. Caleb Downs is there, but Jeremiah Love is a game-changing talent on the offensive side of the football. I think you give Jay Daniels a game-changing running back. I think that helps a lot. So Jeremiah Love to the Commanders. 8th overall, New Orleans Saints take Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. Downs is easily a top 5 player in this class, if not top 3. I think it's be a good pick. The two names I've heard most commonly is Ruben Bain and Jeremiah Love. Obviously, Jeremiah Love is probably off the table due to the signing of Travis Etienne and Alvin Kamara still being there. And with Bain, I just don't think that's a good idea for the Saints because he's got a pretty high bust potential. And for the Saints, you've had too many of those. You can't take that chance again. Mickey Loomis selected this far, which I don't know how. That would definitely be the last straw if you ask me. If he takes Ruben Bain and the guy's a flop. But I also don't think they planned on Caleb Downs being there. And this mock, he's there. They take the best player available. 9th overall, the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, get the 9th pick in that is their pick rather. Excuse me, the 29th pick they acquire from the Rams. They take Mansour Delane, corner out of LSU. You lose 2 very good corners in Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson for agency. You have to replace one, and you get a potential franchise corner in Mansour Delane at LSU. 10th overall, Cincinnati Bengals take Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. Need all the defensive help they can get. You signed Brian Cook to play safety. You signed Boy Mafe, taking a chance on a former first runner from Seattle. If you take Ruben Bain, again, I think Bain has some pretty high bust potential, but he also has a really high ceiling. So I think they roll the dice on Ruben Bain. You put him with Boy Mafe. That's 2 edge rushers who, at their heights over the next few years, could be really good. It could also really backfire, but I think they roll the dice and take Ruben Bain Jr. because they got to take a shot here because they're running out of time for Joe Burrow's prime, or he just say, "I've had enough of those BS, get me out of here." Miami Dolphins have 11. They take offensive tackle Spencer Faining out of Utah here. Again, when you're in a total rebuild, you gotta build from the inside out. Dolphins throw line isn't horrible, but Olsen Jackson I think is better suited on the right side. You take Spencer Fano. The line's in not great shape, but in better shape if you take Spencer Fano, who I think is definitely the second best offensive lineman in this class. 12th overall, Dallas Cowboys take Jermod McCoy, corner out of Tennessee. I'm not super high on him. He's made a lot of enemies. From the draft people, a lot of people don't like him, but Dallas needs to address the defensive side of the ball, which they're kind of doing. You trade for Rashawn Gary, but they just hired on a new defensive coordinator. He comes over from the Eagles. He was their secondary coach, so he's probably going to want to solidify the secondary, and this is the way of doing so by drafting Jermod McCoy. 13th overall, the Rams picked, of course, they have from the Falcons last year. Monroe Freeling, O tackle out of Georgia. Freeling is kind of a weird player. I'm not sure how good of a tackle will be. I think he could be a really good guard. So we'll see what happens with him. But wherever he ends up, I think he'll be a really good offensive lineman overall. The Rams are in a really good spot because you address pretty much all your needs by completely revamping your secondary with the trade of an extension of Trent McDuffie and the signing of Jalen Watson. You're in a position where you don't really have a whole lot of needs. Offensive line, you do lose David Edwards at guard, so you always slot him in for David Edwards. You take Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. 14th overall is Baltimore Ravens, who we thought didn't have their pick when they traded for Max Crosby. Now it's back in their hands. They take Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. I like Mekhi Lemon a lot. I know he had some issues at the combine. Apparently he showed up like out of shape or he was high or something weird. But I think he's a very good receiver. And the Ravens have needed a number two receiver next to Zay Flowers since they drafted him. And they take his opportunity since they already addressed the pass rusher spot by signing Trey Hendrickson. Then they get Lamar Jackson, another piece on the outside. Mekhi Lemon. 15th overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. He's just a really good downfield linebacker the Bucs really need. They had a rough free agency. I think if the offensive line is healthy, they'll be okay. You have to lose Mike Evans. Mecca Ibuka was great last year. Chris Godwin, when he's healthy, is a good receiver. You bring back K. Dotton. The running back room is pretty busy. You brought in Kenneth Gainwell to join Bucky Irving, and you also recently signed Rashad White. Excuse me, Rashad White went to the Commanders. Thought he re-signed. Never mind. But CJ Allen, I think, should be the pick. They have enough firepower offensively. They need to help this team out defensively. They take CJ Allen. 16th overall, the Jets pick. Of course, they have from the Colts from the Sauce trade. They take Jordan Tyson, receiver out of Arizona State. I think it's pretty clear that they need to go edge rusher and receiver in that order with their two first-round picks in this draft. They go edge rusher at 2. They definitely need another receiver next to Gary Wilson. I think Jordan Tyson's a very good receiver, and they can pair him with Gary Wilson for whoever the quarterback is for the Jets in these next coming seasons. Well, from this coming year, it'll be Geno Smith. Next year, it'll be whoever they draft next year. 17th overall, the Detroit Lions. I am taking Vega Ione, guard out of Penn State. The offensive line still needs work. I like the Cade Mates signing at center. He's an upgrade over Glenn Glasgow. You can keep Tate Rutledge at guard. Obviously, you have Peninsula at right tackle, but still, you still need to finish out the offensive line and getting Ione will be a big help. He's the best true guard in this class. A couple of these tackles, I think, might end up being guards. I mentioned Monroe Freeling already, who I have the Rams taking at 13. But Vega Ione is a true guard, and I'm relying on that with this pick. 18th overall, Minnesota Vikings. I'm taking Caleb Banks, the D tackle out of Florida. Just cut Hargrave and Allen, then they replace them, as best they can with Caleb Banks. 19th overall, the Carolina Panthers take tight end Kenyon Sadiq at Oregon. I've Sadiq mocked anywhere from the very end of the first round. So I've seen him go 5th to the Giants. I think I had him maybe at 30 to Denver last time. I had him in that like 26 to 30 right now. I remember in my first mock. I would have went Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson if they were there for the Carolina Panthers, which might end up happening. because they do need another receiver, I think. But next best thing, you still get a big pass catcher for Bryce Young in the best tight end in this class, and Kenyon Sadiq, who should be a really good tight end in this league. 20th overall, Dallas Cowboys pick from the Micah Parsons trade. They take Akeem Messidor, edge out of Miami. Now, I'm not sold on this guy, but again, you got to address the defense if you're Dallas. You draft this kid, you bring in Rashawn Gary, you have Quentin Williams, you always, the pieces that you brought in. Again, you need as many pieces up front that you need, especially if you traded Osa to San Francisco, and Akeem Messidor comes over to the Dallas Cowboys. 21st overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers take Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon. In terms of the quarterback, well, there isn't a quarterback worth taking. Is there a team that would reach on Ty Simpson? Maybe, and that might end up being the Steelers, but I think the way to re-sign Rodgers is a little pivot to Kirk Cousins, who doesn't seem to have much of a market like we thought he would. Nowhere starting to have to really open, and Cleveland's too tied down with Shador and Deshaun Watson. But look at the Steelers. They did some nice things in free agency. You had Michael Pittman next to DK Metcalf. You add Jamal Dean to the secondary. I think they need to continue to improve that secondary. And you add Dylan Thieneman. All of a sudden, you look, Jalen Ramsey, Jamal Dean, Dylan Thieneman. That's not a bad secondary whatsoever. So Dylan Thieneman, an Oregon safety, goes to the Steelers. 22nd overall, Los Angeles Chargers. Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. I throw out the offensive line here, but you do get your 2 All-Pro tackles back. You did add a decent center in Tyler Baez. I know guard's still a complete hole there, but I think you addressed that on day 2. Here, Omar Cooper reminds me a lot of Deebo Samuel, very versatile, a big body receiver that can kind of do it all, important in the red zone. I think that's something that the Chargers really need for Justin Herbert. You put him out there, him, Ladd, Quentin Johnson, Oyer Hampton running the football. You have a couple good tight ends. I think that's a really good offense that fits Jim Harbaugh's style. 23rd overall, the Eagles take Kendrick Folk, edge out of Auburn. They really wanted to re-sign Jalen Phelps. They got outbid. They replaced him in the draft with Kendrick Folk. 24th overall pick, the Browns. They have Jacksonville's pick from the Hunter trade last year. Blake Miller, O-tackle out of Clemson. Here they take care of the offensive line and get Blake Miller. And now all of a sudden your offensive line has been rebuilt. 25th overall, the Chicago Bears. Cassius Howell, edge out of A&M. I like Cassius Howell. I think he'll be a good edge rusher. If you're the Bears, you got to focus on the defensive side of the ball. I still think they have enough weapons, even with trading away DJ Moore. You brought in Garrett Bradbury to replace Drew Dolman at center. You've been adding to a defense. You add Devin Bush at linebacker. You add Kobe Bryant at safety. Now you address the third phase of defense by getting an edge rusher in Cassius Howell. 26th overall, Buffalo Bills. I am taking Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, safety out of Toledo. I have a feeling 3 safeties go in the first round in this draft. Bills need a lot of help defensively. They take Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. 27th overall, 49ers. Take receiver Denzel Boston out of Washington. I like Denzel Boston a lot. I've even seen the Jets taking him at 16, even over Jordan Tyson. He's a very solid receiver. The Niners, I know they signed Mike Evans, but they thrive when they have a ton of weapons. Brock Purdy kind of needs that as well. Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, and Denzel Boston. Keep in mind, Evans is 33, 34, coming off an injury-plagued year. Pearsall can never stay healthy. They need all the receivers they can get, especially with Jawan Jennings, probably not re-signing, and Brendan Ayuk has been cut. 28th overall, Kane Proctor, O-tackle out of Alabama. Not super high on Proctor. He might be a guard, but technically all the off-the-line help they can get. And they get this with Caden Proctor. 29th overall, Kansas City Chiefs, the McDuffie pick. Take TJ Parker, edge out of Clemson. Edge is a major need for them, and they fill that with TJ Parker. 30th overall, the Denver Broncos take wide receiver Casey Concepcion. I'm not sure what his ceiling is, but I think he can be a decent slot receiver. Denver needs a number 2 wideout next to Courtland Sutton, and they can get that with Concepcion. 31st overall, the Patriots with Chris Bell, receiver out of Louisville. Chris Bell, to me, is really, really underrated. I'm not sure why he's not getting more first-round buzz. I have a weird feeling he's going to... Every year, there's like 1 or 2 players that, everyone's like, oh, yeah, they'll be a second-round pick. And all of a sudden, they get drafted in the first round. It's like, oh, really? That's weird. But sometimes they end up working out. I think it ends up working out here. I think he's a first-round talent. And the Patriots, the need wide receiver help, even after signing Romeo Dobbs, with Stephon Diggs being cut, and they also lost Kendrick Bourne for agency. So Chris Bell goes to the Patriots. And 32nd overall, the Seahawks take Avion Terrell corner out of Clemson. You lost Tariq Woolen. I'm not sure how much on the inside he'll end up playing for them, but they lost some pieces on defense. They revamped that by taking a solid corner, Avion Terrell, out of Clemson. That's my mock draft 2.0. I'll do another one in about a month. That's all I got for you guys today. Till next time, so long. Have a great day.